Hello and welcome. Hi, this is Dr. Rozakis, and today we are going to explore how age-related macular degeneration can be prevented, stabilized, and in some cases, even reversed. We'll take a closer look at why traditional eye care has often fallen short in addressing this condition, and we'll introduce an emerging therapy known as red light therapy or photobiomodulation that offers new hope. This presentation is for anyone with macular degeneration, dry, wet, or geographic atrophy. It's also helpful for people with diabetic retinopathy or other age-related eye diseases. This presentation may not apply to everyone. If you've been diagnosed with a macular hole, a blockage in the retinal arteries, Fuchs's dystrophy of the cornea, or if floaters are your main concern, this likely isn't the right fit. It's also less likely to help if your vision has been severely reduced for the past 2 years. In cases like that, the chances of significant improvement are low. I want to start by sharing a hidden truth about eye care, something most people haven't been told. For the past 20 years, patients have been taking eye vitamins hoping to stop macular degeneration. But here's the truth. Those vitamins have largely failed to stop the disease, and there are good reasons why. Let's take a look at what those reasons are. When we talk about those vitamins that have been recommended for years, we're talking about the AREDS formula. The truth is, it's extremely basic, a one-size-fits-all approach that hasn't lived up to its promise. It doesn't prevent dry macular degeneration, it doesn't stop the wet form, and it doesn't improve vision. Statistically, only about 1 in 17 people might see any benefit. That's a pretty weak result for something that's been widely promoted since 1992. Think of it like this: AREDS is rotary phone technology in an iPhone world. And while we've been stuck with outdated solutions, more and more people are losing vision as their macula continues to deteriorate. Just look at the trend in this graph. Let's take a look at what's actually in the current AREDS formula. Do we really believe that a mix of vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene, or lutein and zeaxanthin with a little zinc and copper is enough to stop macular degeneration? Over time, we learned that the zinc dosage was actually too high and could cause harm. So not only did it fail to help many people, it may have caused toxicity in some. Look at how basic this formula is. Why is it so simplistic? There are hundreds of other vitamins, nutraceuticals, and supplements that could have been studied. So why were these chosen, and why hasn't it evolved? Something about this doesn't add up. The real answer is shocking, and I learned it by chance. Over 20 years ago, I shared a cab with a retina specialist. At the time, I was becoming deeply interested in anti-aging medicine and the role of vitamins and nutraceuticals in supporting health and slowing down disease. When I brought up macular degeneration, he said something that stopped me in my tracks. He said, "We did the ARED study to disprove the value of nutraceuticals." I couldn't believe it. When do you design a study just to prove something does not work? But suddenly it made sense why the formulation was so weak and limited. They were not trying to find the best possible solution. They were trying to show that vitamins do not help macular degeneration. But to their surprise, even this underpowered formula showed some benefit. And from that, the AREDS formulation was born. What I want you to see is this in big red letters. If the real goal had been to prove the value of nutraceuticals, imagine what could have been discovered. Instead, AREDS became what we call a straw man, a deliberately weak argument set up just to be knocked down. They wanted it to fail. And because of that approach, many people lost precious vision that might have been saved. The nutraceutical industry is a multi-billion-dollar market because it helps people. A great deal of literature shows that the right nutraceuticals can balance cholesterol, improve mood, improve bone health, support heart health, lower inflammation, improve immune function, stabilize blood sugar, reduce joint pain, and rectify abnormalities in laboratory blood testing. Doesn't it make sense that the right powerful nutraceuticals could actually benefit the macula? Why haven't eye doctors looked into this huge area of science? I think one obvious reason is that eye doctors are simply not trained in natural medicine, so they hide their lack of knowledge by stating we need more research, which of course is never done. as shown by the 20 years of inactivity to do more for macular degeneration. This inactivity has led us to where we are today. As you can see in this graph, the number of people diagnosed with both dry and wet macular degeneration has continued to rise year after year. We are facing a growing epidemic, and it's clear that the current approach isn't enough. This crisis demands better answers and a better strategy moving forward. If the goal 25 years ago had been to prove the value of nutraceuticals rather than dismiss them, we could have seen a completely different outcome. Instead of the flimsy straw man approach you see on the left, imagine we had Big Mike on the right, a strong, well-designed, evidence-based strategy of the best vitamins and nutraceuticals built to truly fight age-related macular degeneration. But that's not what happened. I have a profound sadness that so many people lost vision because top doctors and scientists failed to do their utmost to treat macular degeneration using the best vitamins, supplements, and nutraceuticals. It didn't have to be this way. The knowledge was there, the potential was there, but the will to fully explore it wasn't. And that failure by the very people trusted to lead has cost millions their sight. This has to change, and that's what this presentation is here to do, to shed light on what went wrong and, more importantly, to show a better path forward. Macular degeneration has many forms to it and different treatments depending upon when it is diagnosed. On the left, you see a perfectly normal macula, but over time it begins to change, developing what we call drusen, those yellow deposits that indicate early damage. That's the middle image, and if left unchecked, it can progress to the third stage, where abnormal blood vessels begin to leak and bleed, causing even more vision loss. What I'd like to do next is walk you through each of these stages, including one of the most devastating forms, called geographic atrophy. That's what we'll cover in the next part of this presentation. Macular degeneration begins in what I call the invisible phase. At this point, there's no structural damage yet, nothing you or even your eye doctor can see. But beneath the surface, there's biochemical dysfunction already taking place. This dysfunction is caused by deficiencies and toxicities in the macula's delicate chemistry. The only way to detect it early is through a type of functional testing called dark adaptation. It's a simple test. After a flash of bright light, we measure how long it takes your vision to recover. If it takes more than 5 minutes, it's a sign that the macula isn't functioning properly. Biochemically, things are already going wrong. And this stage is critical, because if we can catch and treat macular degeneration here, before any structural damage occurs, it's the closest we come to curing the disease. The next phase of the disease is called dry macular degeneration. At this stage, we can now see the damage. It's no longer invisible. What we see are yellow-white spots called drusen, which are areas of structural damage within the macula. In the bottom left image, you can see how these drusen create lumps and bumps beneath the retina. They're the physical result of biochemical dysfunction, driven by deficiencies, toxicities, oxidative damage, inflammation, and other dysfunctions that arise with aging. But something else is starting to happen here too. A protein called VEGF begins to rise. And you need to know about VEGF because it's the key player that leads to wet macular degeneration. Now, unfortunately, many patients at this stage are simply told to take those basic vitamins we talked about earlier, the ones that don't do much, and to eat more leafy greens. You're also told to call the office if your vision suddenly gets worse, which usually means it's progressed to the wet form. And trust me, that's not where you want to end up. This is what happens when dry macular degeneration progresses and crosses a dangerous line. We now enter the stage of wet macular degeneration. This form is far more aggressive. It begins when abnormal blood vessels, driven by a protein called VEGF, start to invade the macula. These vessels are weak and unstable, and they leak fluid and blood into the retina, as you can clearly see in the image above. The root cause is still biochemical dysfunction, deficiencies, toxicities, oxidative stress, and chronic inflammation. But now, VEGF is in overdrive, accelerating the damage. This stage can lead to sudden and severe vision loss. It's often detected with OCT scans or with tools like the Amsler grid. And unfortunately, treatment usually involves repeated injections directly into the eye, as shown in the lower image. This is where many patients end up, because the early stages weren't addressed aggressively enough, and that's what we're working to change. This is one of the most devastating forms of macular degeneration, geographic atrophy. At this stage, we're looking at advanced irreversible damage. The cells of the macula have wasted away completely, leaving a large area of dead tissue, as shown in the image. Once the damage reaches this point, it's permanent. The vision lost here cannot be recovered. Just like the earlier stages, the root cause is biochemical dysfunction, age-related deficiencies, toxic buildup, oxidative stress, and inflammation. But by this point, that dysfunction has gone unchecked for too long. It's detectable through an eye exam or OCT imaging, but unfortunately, there's no cure. The only approved treatment now involves a series of eye injections that may slow the progression, but they can't restore what's already lost. This is exactly why early detection and early intervention are so critical. Once the macula reaches this level of damage, we're no longer talking about prevention, we're managing irreversible loss. This slide gives us a basic summary of the state of macular degeneration. It's a progressive disease, starting with a healthy macula, then developing drusen, and eventually leading to leakage, bleeding, and injections. Our goal is simple. We must stop this progression and, where possible, even reverse it. And that's exactly what the next part of this presentation is all about. New approaches, better strategies, and real hope for those living with this disease. We need to do everything we can to protect the functionality of your macula, because once it's lost, it leaves a central blind spot like the one you see in this image. That central dark area means you can no longer drive or read or recognize faces. And unlike glasses, contacts, LASIK, or even cataract surgery, vision lost from macular degeneration is extremely hard to recover. That's the bad news. But here's the good news. There are ways to slow, stop, and even reverse some of this damage. And that's exactly what we're going to cover next. The good news begins with my interest in finding better ways to solve problems. That's the mind of an engineer, and that's my background. I'm Dr. Rozakis. I took that engineering mindset with me to Cornell Medical School and then to the Duke Eye Center, where I trained in ophthalmology. I applied those skills to help pioneer PRK and LASIK eye surgery, and I hold multiple patents in this field. But then, by a twist of fate, I was introduced to the world of anti-aging medicine, and I was fascinated because it approached disease in a way that made logical sense. It treated disease as something with real causes, and therefore real solutions, not just something to manage with medications or surgeries aimed only at the symptoms. The challenge, of course, was that this kind of care depends heavily on understanding biochemistry. And that's when I had the good fortune of meeting Dr. Brian Banke. He holds a PhD in biochemistry and went on to earn a master's degree in nutrition. His thesis focused specifically on macular degeneration. For almost 15 years now, we've worked together with a shared mission to develop a method, a clear scientific approach to tackle the root causes of disease and aging. At the heart of our method is one simple, powerful idea. Making cells healthier is the key to longevity and fighting disease. Your body is made up of trillions of cells, and when those cells are functioning at their best, you function at your best. So here's the concept. If you nurture your cells will nurture you back. It's that partnership between you and your biology that leads to a longer, healthier life. It makes sense, doesn't it? It's logical, it's science, and it's where real healing begins. So how do we actually improve the health of your cells? That's where our method comes in. Our approach is based on a combination of detailed medical history and advanced lab testing. We don't guess, we measure. And what we're measuring is your biochemistry to help determine what foods, nutraceuticals, and hormones your cells need to reverse deficiencies and toxicities that can cause degeneration. This is how we improve cell function, and ultimately, how we work to slow or reverse diseases like macular degeneration. What is exciting is that by choosing the right nutraceuticals, hormones, and nutritional strategy, we can help cells repair DNA damage, produce energy, reduce oxidative stress, reduce inflammation, turn on good genes, and turn off bad genes. All of this will heal the biochemistry inside the cell to help the cell restore its proper, optimal function. Dr. Baki and I applied this method to many different medical conditions associated with aging, and as a result, we received an award in 2015 for the advancement of healthcare. However, the big question that remained since I am an ophthalmologist was, can this strategy benefit macular degeneration? To answer this question, 5 years ago in 2020, we studied 365 eyes with dry or wet macular degeneration to see if the method could stabilize and improve vision in dry disease and if it could benefit wet macular degeneration. We had a hunch it would help because we had a few patients who did very well on the program. That's why we did the study. We certainly did not want to waste our time pursuing macular degeneration if it wasn't going to help, so we had to figure this out because macular degeneration was such a public health problem. The results of the study were fascinating. Virtually all eyes with dry macular degeneration could be stabilized, but even more exciting, 48% of the dry macular eyes showed improvement in vision. This is not supposed to happen. It is supposed to be an irreversible progressive disease, but people were able to see better, which is groundbreaking. And now, years later, we continue to see long-term stability or improvement in many of these patients. This is real, it's measurable, and it's published in a peer-reviewed journal. Had it not been for the improvement in vision, we never would have created our macular program. What this means is that we now have a new method to preserve vision that must be utilized before irreversible damage sets in. The image on the left may look like a typical retina with drusen, but those flames represent what's really happening beneath the surface: oxidative stress, inflammation, VEGF rising, energy production failing, DNA damage building up. And if left untreated, that slow burn turns into what you see on the right, a full-blown fire. This is what happens when macular degeneration progresses to the point of bleeding, scarring, and vision loss that can't be undone. But here's the key. We now have tools to put out the fire early. By restoring cellular energy, supporting DNA repair, lowering oxidation and inflammation, and controlling VEGF, we give the retina a chance to heal. We don't want to wait until the house is burning down. We want to treat before irreversible vision loss occurs.